Welcome back to Banging the Can, the Houston sports show that does not apologize for championship rings and tings, presented by Bolen Media. I am your host, Ross Bolen. And first, I want to say welcome to all the Rangers fans who are here to gloat. Welcome to the show. I see you. I see you in the comments. I know you're here to soak up the tears, and that's fine. That's fine. Congratulations, okay? Congratulations, you motherfuckers. In hindsight, the Astros winning the division, it really backfired about as hard as it possibly could have backfired. We talked a lot of shit when the Rangers choked away the division title because at the time, we obviously didn't expect to choke away the ALCS by failing to win a single game at home. And it backfired. Hard. And I think that's the thing that hurts the most for me right now. Is that when I look at the way this postseason unfolded, I feel like we were one win at Minute Maid Park away from winning a third World Series title. And that's tough. When I zoom out and I include 2019, I feel like the Houston Astros were 2 wins away at Minute Maid Park from having 4 World Series wins in 7 years. If we win one game at home in the 2019 World Series and we win one game at home in the 2023 ALCS, it's very, very likely we would be 1 ring short of a full 5 right now, and that hurts. That is a tough pill to swallow. And that's the thing that I am struggling to deal with the most, that what could have been, right? That's often the case in sports. As I've said over the past several weeks, this is one of the hardest things about having a team that is consistently contending for a championship. As a result, you're dealing with even more letdowns, even more suffering and pain. Like when the Rockets don't win a championship, nothing happens. Nobody cares. We don't expect to win a championship. When the Texans lose, we all just move on with our lives. But when it's the Astros, it's a little harder to let go. It's a little bit harder to let go. And I've heard Astros fans saying like, oh, I pay no mind to the Rangers. I'd rather the Rangers win than the Yankees or the Dodgers. And frankly, I'm sorry. But that is bullshit. That is a way that you are coping with what just occurred. The Rangers are a division rival. The Rangers are an in-state rival. The Rangers have Texas in front of their name, undeservingly laying claim to the entire state, and the Rangers winning the World Series after we failed to win a single game at home to knock them out of the ALCS is much, much worse than anyone else winning the World Series, and anyone saying otherwise is a bold-faced liar who's just trying to deal with the pain that they are currently experiencing, with the letdown that we all just experienced. I understand that we developed rivalries with the Yankees and the Dodgers over the last 7 years or whatever, but like, it's not the same. Those are not in-state rivals. Those are not division rivals. This is much, I don't have to deal with fucking Yankees fans on a day-to-day basis. And I realize the strong majority of you listening live in Houston, except for the Arlington fans who are here. Again, hello, welcome. Thank you for coming. But living in Austin, I have to I had an Astros hat on for months, right? During pretty much the whole fucking regular season, I'm wearing an Astros hat. So when I go drop my kids off at school here in Austin, Texas, I've got an Astros hat on. It's early in the morning. I haven't gotten ready for work yet, so my hair's fucked. I just put on an Astros hat. I take my kids to school. I never saw a single Rangers hat on another dad for the first 2 months of school. Not once in September, not once in October, until this past 2 weeks. And now there are Rangers hats fucking everywhere. They're rubbing it in my face. And I don't like it. I don't like it. And I don't have to deal with Dodgers and Yankees fans on a daily basis. I have to deal with Rangers fans. I didn't go to school, college, with a bunch of Dodgers and Yankees fans. I went to college with Rangers fans. Some of my best friends. And now I got to listen to their shit the entire fucking offseason and all of next year because we blew it. And that grinds my fucking gears. That sucks. And here's something I hope Jim Crane, the Astros owner, and Dana Brown, the Astros' new GM, take into account during what is, in my opinion, the biggest offseason for the Astros since we won our first championship in 2017. When the Rangers saw their window opening, they went all in. And they went all in without hesitation. The Astros have to do the same thing this offseason. When I look at the landscape of the league, the Astros, regardless of a rough regular season and obviously disappointing postseason, remain in the top tier of MLB franchises in terms of talent and potential. We need things to break better for us next year in terms of health. Jose Altuve starting the season healthy would be nice. Yordan Alvarez staying healthy. The pitching staff staying healthy. But we also need some help in some areas. There are some things that need to change based on what we saw this regular season a little, but mostly based on what we saw in the postseason, okay? And Jim Crane and Dana Brown need to respect the fact that the window won't be open forever. That we are, at the very least, in the back half of this dynasty that started in 2017. And that with the core performers of Altuve, Alvarez, Bregman, Tucker, Pena, Verlander, Valdez, Javier, like those guys are all locked in for next season. It's time to capitalize and not let this moment pass you by. The Dusty Baker era is over. But this run we are on is not. 7 straight ALCS berths, 2 World Series wins, and 4 appearances in that same 7-year stretch. You have to keep it going. More on that in a moment. But to touch on Dusty Baker, Dusty had a lot to say about his retirement and exit as the Astros manager over the past week and change. Here's a little bit from the Houston Chronicle. In a candid chat with TNT's Charles Barkley and Ernie Johnson, former Astros manager Dusty Baker admitted the criticism he received late in the season helped convince him it was time to retire. Quote, "We had a lot of success here, Ernie and Charles, and then the last couple of months here weren't very pleasant because we weren't 10 games ahead," Baker said. "You spoil people. They think you're supposed to win this every year running away, and it's not like that. Every year's different." There was a whole bunch of criticism from 30-year-olds and bloggers and tweeters that I'm not doing this and I don't know that. And I told my wife, I'm kind of tired of this and tired of the scrutiny. And if I could go manage and show up at, say, 6:30 for a 7 o'clock game and leave 30 minutes after the game, don't do the pre-game and post-game interviews, I could manage for another 4 or 5 years. You know what I mean? After a while, you just get tired of answering questions. So, Dusty, again, shining the spotlight on the fact that between the media and the fans, he did not appreciate the way things went this season. And now, on one hand, I'm like, dude, you're a 74-year-old world champion, Hall of Famer. You've accomplished pretty much everything anyone could hope to accomplish in the sport of baseball over a lifetime of service, really. Why do you give a single shit what anyone else thinks about you? Why are you even on the blogs or the Twitter machine, Dusty? You're an old man. I'd cut off a toe or 2 to not have to be on social media. It's a hellscape, but this is where I make my money. I have to be here. You make your money on the baseball field. That's how I feel on one hand. On the other hand, I get it. It wears you down. It wears you down constantly feeling the criticism and the doubt. And look, being exposed to that negativity, even online, it wears you down over time. Like, I'm currently being worn down by Rangers fans online. And if I was 74 years old and didn't have to worry about paying my bills, I would definitely consider walking away because sometimes it's too much. It's too much shit to eat consistently. So I get it. I feel for Dusty Baker. I just think it's a little weird that he was even exposing himself to the internet shit that apparently played a part in his decision to retire. But I do feel for him. He did not deserve the treatment he got this year from Astros fans. As I said all season long, we are a spoiled fan base that is not up for argument anymore. It was proven in 2023 that we are a truly spoiled baseball fan base at this point. And as I said all season long, a lot of the shit that went wrong with injuries, health of players, it put Dusty in a tricky situation where he had to make some difficult decisions pretty much all regular season long. The Maldonado versus Diaz decision was not as easy as people on the internet wanted it to be, and our pitching staff went from the most reliable in the league in 2022 to a total crapshoot in 2023. So really, it just sucks that the Dusty Baker era ends with all of this negativity and weird subliminal shots, and it's unfortunate because we had several great years together. And I will miss Dusty Baker. And I hate that it ended this way. Now, that being said, as I have said before, I think this was the right time for the Astros to move on from Dusty Baker and, frankly, for Dusty Baker to move on from the Astros. I didn't think it would be because of the media or the 30-year-olds on the Twitter machine talking shit, but here we are. Look, Dusty did everything we needed him to do. But the window is still open, and the team is different than it was when he inherited it. And we need a new manager with a new outlook, with a new perspective, and a new energy to power this team to another World Series win before the window closes. And on that note, here's more from the Houston Chronicle. Houston general manager Dana Brown told reporters Wednesday his phone is currently blowing up with potential candidates for the team's managerial vacancy. Based on Houston's track record, it's not hard to see why. The Astros are anything but a rebuilding squad entering the coming season, with another trip to the World Series in 2024 still very much in play. But perhaps more importantly, an incoming manager will be flanked by a strong organization, one with an ownership committed to winning, and a general manager with a track record for success. The value of the Astros job lies outside of the 2024 expectations. The gig could be a stable landing spot for an incoming manager through this decade. So that sounds good, right? Here's what Dana Brown had to say about the search. Quote, "We're not going to rush through this, so there's not really a time frame. But as far as a candidate, I'm looking for someone with some leadership ability, someone that could run the clubhouse, of course, looking for someone with great feel for players and managing players. There's a lot that I'm looking for. I mean, he's got to know the game, he's got to be able to run a bullpen, and most of all, he's got to have the leadership skills. I'm looking for someone I could gel with and communicate well with." So those are all really obvious traits, right? Like, he didn't say anything, Dana Brown, particularly surprising or shocking in describing what he's looking for in the next Astros general manager. And the one really positive takeaway from this story is that it sounds like there are a lot of people really interested in the job, which frankly is also not shocking. 7 straight ALCS berths, 2 World Series wins, 4 trips in that same 7-year span. And I know a lot of you want bench coach Joe Espada to get the job. And look, based on his Game 5 performance after Dusty got ejected when he subbed in Diaz and Singleton, who both got on base for Altuve, and we all know what happened next, I'm certainly not opposed to Joe getting an interview and having a chance at the job. But that being said, as the Houston Chronicle also said, Jim Crane has never tabbed an internal candidate for a GM or manager role since buying the team in 2011. It's not something he's done before, so it would be a first. And I think as a result of looking at that track record, it would be kind of surprising and shocking if he just tapped bench coach Joe Espada and promoted him up to the general manager. Because here's the way, if I'm Jim Crane, here's the way I'm looking at that. Well, I already have Joe. Promoting Joe does not bring anything entirely new in terms of managerial talent into the clubhouse. It's not a hard reset, which frankly, after this season, feels like we kind of need it. Like new blood might be a good thing. And Joe's great. Not saying anything bad about Joe. I'm just saying if I'm Jim Crane, Joe Espada is already in my dugout. He's already there. And if I want to go to him at some point, that option remains open. But getting someone else in, That's something you have to consider. And look, Bruce Bochy is the dude I am currently looking at wearing a fresh World Series championship hat and t-shirt. And in the same way that the Rangers hired Bochy to counter Dusty, now I think the Astros have to hire someone to counter Bochy. All right, that's the way I'm looking at it. That's your division rival that is now World Series champion. That's the team you have to beat. Being realistic about it. I know there are a lot of you who are like, oh, the Rangers got their one. They're one and done. They'll fizzle out. It's over. I don't know, man. I don't think this is going to go the way a lot of you think it is. That's very positive thinking. Like, I watched the Rangers the whole postseason. And a lot of the regular season. Probably more than most of you. And they, other than that weird slump at the end of the season, what they did in the postseason is what they did all regular season long. There was a lot of consistency to their offensive performance. The pitching that we all thought was the question mark that would get them wiped out of the playoffs, it didn't go that way, did it? And this is with DeGrom going down, Scherzer being unhealthy for a lot of the season, and then again in the postseason, losing Adolis Garcia for the last game. They still got it done. They have the talent to compete for another championship next season, in my opinion. And I think you have to respect that. I think you have to respect the fact that Bruce Bochy did the job he did. That was a great hire. I'll say it again. Rangers fans that are here, I know your hand is probably in your pants at this point, and that's fine. You earned it. Enjoy it. But to me, I'm not just looking at the Rangers going, that was a one-time thing. We'll be fine. That's not how I'm looking at it. I think you have to counter what they've got going on in the clubhouse, in the front office. And that's basically the extent of my thoughts on the general manager situation right now for the Houston Astros. I will leave it at that. But this is definitely a pivotal offseason for the Astros. You cannot fuck this up. You cannot fuck this up. There are a lot of members of the media that in the same way they complained about Dusty Baker and got under his skin, that are currently looking at Jim Crane going, hey, dude, what the hell? Why are you letting Jeff Bagwell run as much as it seems that he's running? Like, why? What are you doing? A lot of members of the media who have covered this team since 2017, okay, so these are not guys who are all together to be dismissed. They do have some idea of what they're talking about. A lot of the members of the media who have covered this team since 2017, who knew the guys running the show in 2017, who were largely considered to be non-baseball people, nerds, dorks, who were bringing in this new approach and a different set of analytics, and it produced results. No one can argue with that. All of those nerds and dorks are gone. And Jim Crane appears to be running a little bit more of a good old boys show, with Jeff Bagwell being given as much decision-making power as he has, involving him in the general manager search, involving him in the Dana Brown hire. Like, Jeff Bagwell's fingerprints have been all over this team, and that has members of the media questioning Jim Crane and why he abandoned the approach that got him here in the first place. And that there is concern around, like, there are teams and companies who have success, and you get a certain amount of cocky when you've had a certain amount of success, and you think, well, fuck it, I can kind of just run this however I want. And that's the light that Jim Crane is currently being painted in. So this is a pivotal offseason. You cannot fuck this up. You cannot do anything to lessen the length of your championship window. Dana Brown has to make this team better this offseason. That is his whole fucking job. He has a lot of decisions to make, particularly with the pitching staff. And he has made reference to some of the guys who are on the way out in terms of contract, like Phil Maton, Hector Neris, Ryan Stanek, and basically implied like that they're not coming back, that they're going to fill those holes. Now, that's also possibly a negotiating tactic, because he has to go to the table with these guys and their agents and decide if he wants to re-sign them. But there's a lot that's going to happen in the next 3-4 days. And then there's going to be a lot more that happens this offseason, depending on what decisions these guys make. And it sounds like Dana Brown has already made his decision about Yanier Diaz being the everyday starting catcher next season. So I'm guessing that plays into their general manager search as well. They're going to want somebody who's on board with that decision, that letting Maldonado go in one way or another from the starting catcher position is a thing that is going to happen. So at least we never have to talk about that again. Thank fucking God. Probably the most miserable part of the 2023 season was just the back and forth between the fans just bitching and moaning about Maldonado. It should be Diaz. Yanier Diaz would have won Rookie of the Year. Maldonado can't hit a baseball. And like, everybody was right and everybody was wrong. And what Dusty Baker did was never going to be good enough, and it is what it is, but now we can put that to bed because it sounds like Yanier Diaz is our guy moving into next season, which frankly I'm very, very excited about. We need more bats, more consistent bats, and he was a great hitter in the regular season. But there are a lot of other decisions to be made. It's going to be an interesting offseason for the Houston Astros. Today's episode is brought to you by MyBookie. If you're looking for a sports book or want to switch to a sports book that supports your favorite Houston sports podcast, MyBookie has everything you need. Obviously, the World Series is over. Major League Baseball offseason has begun, but we've got college football, the NFL, NBA regular season is cooking now, golf, hockey. If there's a sporting event you're looking to bet on, the point is MyBookie has you covered. Just go to mybookie.ag, use code ROSS when you make your first deposit to unlock a welcome bonus. Stipulations apply. As a bettor, you demand perfection, and MyBookie delivers NFL, college football, and a brand new cash-out system giving you options to bet and win all season long. First two legs of your parlay hit, cash out early and use the funds on another bet, or let it ride for the chance at a bigger payday. Join the MyBookie family for an entire season filled with odds, boosts, free bets, and super contests. To get started, go to mybookie.ag now. Register for an account for free, and then when you're ready to make your first deposit, just use promo code ROSS to grab a welcome bonus on the house. Stipulations apply. That's promo code ROSS to claim your deposit bonus. So what are you waiting for? If you're already betting on sports elsewhere and you're down to do so on a great platform that also supports your favorite Houston sports podcast, code ROSS, ROSS, at mybookie.ag is the way to do it. Just use code ROSS to unlock that deposit bonus. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with MyBookie. Let's jump over to the Houston Rockets for a second, shall we? I'm in my Rockets Ninja Turtles t-shirt today, trying to switch my vibes away from baseball entirely and move on to not better things, but other things. Slow start, man, for the Rockets. It's, a whole new look. New coach in Ime Udoka, who it's hard to judge really anything in terms of his performance so far. But altogether, a respected guy across the face of the NBA, seen as one of the better, younger coaches in the league. Some promise there for Rockets fans. But starting out 1-3, 0-3 before we got our first win, that didn't feel so good. At least we're not the last winless team in the league, though. The Memphis Grizzlies are. But really not a lot to feel super excited about so far for Rockets fans outside of, I guess, the hope of the future. Like, Fred VanVleet has looked decent. I don't know. Dylan Brooks. A lot of money, man, got spent on those two guys. Their expectations are going to be high, and so far, you have to admit, they have not lived up to them. Alperen Sengun has looked like the best and most consistent player on the team, but really, that is nothing new. I've been saying for, 3 seasons now that Sengun looks like the guy we should probably run the offense through, or at least around. And Jabari Smith Jr. off to another really slow start. Looks like he did last season before he really turned it on toward the end of the season. Jalen Green, I'm shrugging my shoulders. I don't know. I just don't fucking know. I mean, it makes it a million times harder when I'm looking at the Spurs and what Wembanyama is doing through 4 games, and and it's impossible for me to not think about having to deal with that fucker for the next 15 years, and I cannot do it. He's a freak of nature. Nobody that tall should have all of that ball handling, shooting, passing, court vision. It just isn't fair. People keep making the joke he's like an NBA 2K24 my player, and yeah, it's like somebody built him in a fucking video game, and somehow Popovich and the Spurs end up with him, so of course he's in our fucking division. It's a nightmare. It's a worst case scenario. It sucks, and it sucks even more because we had a lottery draft pick, and we didn't get number 1, so we didn't get Wembanyama, and then he did the thing at the draft where once he saw that he wasn't going to the Rockets, he seemed relieved. Not good. Our current situation in the NBA. Hopefully things get better for the Rockets. I'm not like burying the team yet or anything, but the way the last few years have gone combined with the way this year has started at 1-3 doesn't feel good to me. Doesn't feel good. Let's talk Texans. Bad loss. Bad loss against the 0-6 Panthers last week. Ugh, that hurt. Giving Bryce Young his first win as an NFL quarterback when so far in the season, one of the things to hang our hat on was the fact that it looked like we got the right guy at number 2. Well, he outperformed C.J. Stroud in that game. Now, I'm not saying that means a whole hell of a lot, But that was a really, really fucking bad loss. To lose to an 0-6 team, give them their first win. It was tough. Look, we are technically 2 field goals away from being 5-2, the Texans. 2 games we should have won. We would be 5-2 instead of 3-4. And that is fucking frustrating as a Texans fan. Been a lot of weird decisions being made by the coaching staff too. Look, D'Amico Ryans deserves time to find his footing. I'm not judging him all too harshly yet. But the offense has been weird, man. Like, way too much running on first down. Seems like they're not letting C.J. Stroud shine the way they were the first couple of games. I understand it's difficult for a rookie to maintain the momentum that C.J. had the first few games. That was always going to be a challenge, and defenses are going to start, game planning around his strengths more and more. But that was a tough one to watch last Sunday. Brutal. Bad loss. Not a good game. And the Texans are still trying to figure out who they are, I guess. So we play the Buccaneers at home on Sunday at NRG. Bucs are 3-4, just like us. Another, on paper, another winnable game. And we are currently minus 2.5 point favorites. This is the second week in a row that we'll have been favorites. We were 3-point favorites against the Carolina Panthers. We know how that went. So, yeah, got to win. Got to win. If you want to get people all the way back on the bandwagon, this offseason, look, there was a lot of momentum for the Texans. Bringing in D'Amico Ryans, using the 2 and 3 pick on Will Anderson and C.J. Stroud. Like, people had something to be excited about. I was excited. I'm still kind of excited. But frankly, between the Astros losing in the ALCS to the Rangers and the Texans blowing another game to a winless Carolina Panthers, my excitement levels have dropped pretty considerably, and I think they're losing momentum here. If they want momentum, if they want to pull the fans back in and get us to invest and get us ready to be hurt again, they're going to have to be better than they've been so far. The NFL is a weird, weird league. I've said it before and I'll say it again. The any given Sunday thing is real for a reason. Like the Philadelphia Eagles, first few games of the season, people are like, oh, they're a lock to go to the Super Bowl. Last couple games, few games, people are like, oh, maybe they're not so good. You can't really tell. Sunday to Sunday, it's really, really challenging to judge football teams in the NFL. The Tom Brady Patriots era is over, where you look at the 2 conferences and you can pretty fucking easily pick out, well, here are the legit teams. It's not really possible the way it once was. There seems to be more parity in the league. And especially these first 6-7 weeks of the season, it can be very difficult to pick winners, to pick who's going to be the real deal when it all comes down to it at the end here. And for that reason, the Texans have to go out and get some wins while they can. The schedule is going to get difficult at some point. Right now, it's not so bad. Got to beat the Bucs. Got to beat the Bucs. You blew it to the Panthers. You got to beat the Bucs. That's where I'm at with the Texans. It's like, am I excited to watch them play on Sunday? At this point, for the first week so far this season, the answer is not really. I'll watch, but I'm not stoked. It's been a disappointing year so far. So it's been a tough stretch here for Houston. Between the Astros losing, the Rockets having a slow start, the Texans blowing another game, the Titans rolling out their fucking Oilers jerseys, the NFL sending a cease and desist to the U of H Cougars for their use of the Love Ya Blue uniforms. I understand the Dynamo are in the MLS playoffs or whatever, but look, I'm sorry. I've never been an MLS guy. I don't have room in my emotional sports stable for whatever's going on there. I wish them well. For all the Dynamo fans listening, what do they say? Hold it down. I think they have the same slogan that we do to end our show. I get it. Go Dynamo, but I'm not plugged in for that. So this is what we've got going. This is where we are. And that will do it for today's show. But remember, every episode of Banging the Can is available on youtube.com/@bangingthecan. If you are not already watching there and you would prefer to watch instead of just listen, youtube.com/@bangingthecan. Frankly, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, you are in the strong minority at this point. Most of our listeners are actually viewers on YouTube. So if you're one of the people that's listening, I appreciate you. However you take in the show is your prerogative, but I would also appreciate you if you would go to youtube.com/@bangingthecan and subscribe. Even if you just plan on listening to the audio, it helps us out a lot. Please and thank you. Again, shout out to the Rangers fans who are here to soak up the tears. I hope they tasted good. Good and salty. Somebody should enjoy the pain that we're going through. And it is you this year, unfortunately. If you would also subscribe, I would appreciate the support. Thank you. Rangers fans. On that note, Houston folks, please share the most unapologetic Houston sports show in existence with your friends and family. It's the only way to keep the show going, make sure it grows, make sure I can continue to do this thing moving into 2024. So I'm so thankful for all of your support during the 2023 Astros season. It means a lot. Continue to hang with me during the Rockets and Texans season and to talk Astros offseason as well when there is enough to talk about. But tell your friends and family about the show too. It helps enormously. Also support our sponsors. Today's sponsor is MyBookie. Go to mybookie.ag, use code Ross when you decide to make your first deposit, and you will get a welcome bonus. Check out my media startup, Bolen Media, at bolenmedia.com. My comedy show, The Ross Bolen Podcast, available wherever you listen to or watch Banging the Can. Also, we've got an F1 show, Formula Bone. That's a B in front of one, Formula Bone. If you're an F1 fan, J-Bone, as he is known, is the host of Formula Bone, bringing you a preview and a recap for every single F1 race all season long. You can find him on youtube.com/@FormulaBone and @FormulaBone on all the social media platforms. I am Ross Bolen. You can follow me on Twitter, I'm not calling it X, and Instagram @WRBOLEN. I'll be back next week. Until next time, H-Town, stay down.